Why do we suck so bad at communicating?
There's always communication. Anything we do, anything we achieve in our life is because of a relationship.
Because you are a corporate coach and a trainer, give us like a really good example.
So he's saying, teach us dum-dums how to talk.
Yeah, how do
That's what he's saying.
You'd see it used by places like Pixar Studios, and then NASA picked up on it when they were starting their shuttle program.
I've got a little bit of a controversial question for you.
Every time we go for safety, we're going to give up sovereignty.
Welcome to the Chasing Mountains podcast. Very excited today. We've got our good friend and dare I say mentor over the years.
Sensei. He's my Yoda when it comes to being able to speak to my wife.
So with that said, communication expert, Dean Heffta. He's also a corporate coach, trainer, all kinds of stuff that you have going on.
I have never met someone who cares so much about communicating to people. Not for the point of like, what can I get out of this, but like helping individuals communicate with others, spouses communicate, businesses. He came into our company, how many years ago was that?
It's like 4 years ago, probably now.
We learned so much about ourselves and other people. And a lot of times you're so busy looking at other people, you don't take a moment to look at yourself. And that's something that I definitely really struggled with, especially younger in my life. I think I want to know, dude, why do you care if other people can communicate? Like, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the ultimate question, right? Is for anything that we do in our life, you know, whether you're 20 years old or 50 years old, your career path, how do you spend your weekend is like, what's behind that? What's behind that? I mean, that's a key question. And so for me with communication, it's always been under the surface of, as I look at challenges that I ran into, success there was in something I did, there's always communication. Anything we do, anything we achieve in our life is because of a relationship. Think about it. It's a person you met, it's somebody you worked on a project with. And so for me, what began to emerge was, if we're going to have success in those people that we work with, the projects that we're on, the things that we say that we want to achieve, the only way we're going to do that well is if we're communicating at an effective level. And what happens is we think that we're communicating, and then we find out later that we really aren't. You know, if you've ever had yourself get to that situation at the end of a project and you think, well, everybody knows what to do, and then you realize they didn't understand what I was talking about, or I misunderstood what they were talking about, and that miscommunication creates breakdowns in relationships and inefficiencies in our projects and frustration in our lives. And for me, it's like, what better way, if I want to help people be more successful, than to make sure that a part of that is improving how we communicate.
Did you struggle at all as a kid to learn to communicate with people?
So, I mean, I grew up on a farm,
Okay.
you know, in a tiny town. And so I would say that probably sensitized me to being aware of communication, you know, observing and watching. And because you're not around as many people, you're a bit more attuned to the things that are going on. And so
almost like when you're not a part of the crowd, it's so obvious the trends that they're playing with, or even like the obvious like errors in play. When you're not playing the game, it's so much easier to see from above. And do you feel like you were in that state?
Yeah, I think I've always enjoyed being an outsider, you know, so.
Me too.
Whether it's moving to a different community or a new organization, is you're able to have those fresh eyes, right? So those relationships that you're able to watch what's going on there, where you're a little bit separated from it. You're watching, what you're really watching is the process of how people are communicating, which is different than the content that people are communicating. So we get hung up on what I'm talking about, what I want people to understand, and we miss that what's really going on is how the process is of our interaction, which is a separate thing.
So if communication is like key to everything, and for us humans, why do we suck so bad at communicating?
There's probably a lot of reasons, but think about anything that you've been around your whole life. When you're around something your whole life, you think that you're good at it because you're not aware of it, right? A fish doesn't know it's in water. And so it's not thinking consciously about it. It assumes that, well, we both speak English. We must be speaking the same language. And all of the things that we want, all the assumptions, all the stuff that's floating around in our head, like it's too much for us to express. And so we start thinking people are mind readers. And then we don't express like our expectations, our fears, our concerns, and it's all just bounced around in our head. And then at the end of a relationship or at the end of a situation, we realize, well, that's not what I expected. And we think it's the other person's fault. And the reality is it's probably our own fault for not communicating better, but we're not thinking of it as this separate thing because we're just going through our day, going through our life, just talking or doing or whatever it is that comes out.
Well, before we get into it too much, I guess we should talk about how we met him. Like, so was it you two at church, Ali, at one point in time?
Yeah.
So someone tell me the story because I don't remember the chain of event to where he's our friend now.
In addition to all the different things, Dean, that you've done in your background and things you still do, drummer is also part of the resume. And so Dean was drumming in the band. I was also a very well-respected leader in the church when...
What church was it? A church that Leah was leading worship
She was
at?
worship leader.
Yeah, so she came on board as the worship leader there. I was involved in a lot of like just the tech stuff and would occasionally play, but we got to know Dean, and Dean very quickly embraced Leah and like kind of brought her in under his wing and was, I think, really appreciative to have her there and some new blood and kind of saw the direction of some of the things that she was wanting to do. It was just super supportive and rallied the troops whenever needed and
Became friends. And
yeah.
Did we meet at a show?
Probably the first time we met was at one of Ilea's shows. You were, I think, running sound.
Right.
And then, time passes and my son Carter was in one of your music videos for one of your clients.
That's right.
And, we've had a lot of stuff like
That's right. It's weird to think how we get to where we are today. So can you explain a little bit what PCM is?
Sure. So obviously the work that I do with clients, leadership teams, people that I'm coaching is focused on a lot of times leadership and a part of leadership is communication. So you can't be an effective leader if you're not influential. So whether it's in your community, in your company, in your family, leadership is connected to influence, and it's hard to be a good influencer if you're not a good communicator. And so what is communication? Communication is the giving of information, but also the acceptance, right? So the two-way street. It's not just sending stuff out to the world. And one of the tools that I use in my work is called process communication model. And that's really great insights for helping us understand how our personality is connected to how we communicate. So the language we use, the words we select, the tones that you hear, all of those are indicators of the deeper personality part. And this came out of work by Dr. Tabby Kaler in the 1970s. And then NASA picked up on it when they were starting their shuttle program. And they had been really struggling with communication in their astronauts in the Skylab and in the Apollo programs. And they said, we got to do something different. And so when they heard about the power of the insights of understanding personality, which involves the motivation and the distress challenges that people have, they saw that they could weave that into the work they do in building strong teams for their astronauts. And so they funded millions of dollars of research to validate and create what became what we use today as process communication model. You'd see it used by places like Pixar Studios. So they use it to help them build more effective characters that we resonate with, as well as storylines of how the dialogue would go.
That's why their movies make me cry.
That's right. Right? They're dialed in on it.
Like you know who that person is.
Just
You don't
sensitive.
know.
You're just sensitive.
Maybe. No, probably not. But that is something I didn't know that Pixar did it, but that makes so much more sense. They're communicating with selection of words to put that character in a certain place.
Well,
Wow,
we had talked before. So Dean has, back when I used to work for you,
Yep.
Dean came in to your company and met with everybody on staff, and we kind of went through this course, which was super eye-opening, I think, for all of us, because there's a lot at play with us as a team, because we are not only a small, tight-knit group, like half of us are family, half of us are married to each other. It was very interesting and I think useful experience. But yeah, the whole Pixar thing came up then, but I thought it was just that Pixar, like corporate, had used it
I think
within
so
their
did I.
teams. I didn't realize that it went into the writing and the character development, which is brilliant. Like that makes a lot of sense.
So a well-regarded leadership book called Creativity, Inc. by Ed Catmull. So he was in charge of Pixar, and he references the power of PCM and how that made a big impact on them as an organization. So they started weaving that in with the movie Incredibles. in that character development. And why it's helpful for them is we all know, like all the stuff in PCM is stuff that we all know. This isn't some secret, occult science that's hiding here. It's
For
stuff
$9.99 a month, you can have the secret.
The secret, right? This is stuff we know at a very kind of intuitive, deep level. And what helps with this is it gives us these 6 lenses of how people experience and see the world. And so when we can simplify things, it becomes less mysterious, I think. So it's a demystifying of it. And so it helps them with their characters. Every movie that you write is going to have some sort of stress introduced, right? There's some challenge. The plot is there. And so you're going to see characters behaving badly. And with PCM, it gives us the formula to say, here's how this type of personality is going to behave when they're behaving badly. It's predictable. And so it simplifies for them the behavior that they're writing for those characters.
Because you came in and you gave us pretty much a test, which I hate tests, but it's
a survey. It's a survey.
Yeah, but it was a survey this thick and it felt like a test. I think I outsourced half of it. She says yes. It was a test, survey about yourself, and you need to be brutally honest. And there's a ton of questions that are really personal. How you would react to certain things. In a certain scenario, you'd feel this way. And then you guys take it back and you analyze it. And it kind of puts you in multiple different groups. And then you guys come in and kind of explained it all to us. Can you talk about the different characters?
So the concept is, and I encourage anybody, when we think about personality, it's easy for people to get a little bit twitchy about it because it's like, well, I don't want to get pigeonholed. And that's a real risk with a lot of personality tools. With PCM, one of the things that I love about it is it isn't trying to identify what personality are you. Mm-hmm. It's recognizing we have all 6 of these personalities in us, right? And that means that we are adaptable and we can connect with different people. So when you think about who's somebody that I want to connect with, well, this gives me the awareness of what part of me can I use to make a better connection in that communication. So you can start with thinking about the 6 different lenses that people see the world through, because there's too much information around to be able to absorb it all. We got to sort stuff out. We got to simplify. We got to filter things, or we can't process it. So these 6 lenses allow us to filter things out with a priority around things like thought, right? So some people, close to half of guys, their strongest view of the world, about 40% of guys, their strongest view of the world is going to come through this lens of thoughts, information, data, facts, right? So very information-oriented. Opinions is another one, right? So we're going to see the world through our value system, things we care about and believe in and have strong opinions about. That's going to be another lens that we would use. Then you have emotions. So we experience the world through the emotion lens, and about 45% of women are going to have that as their strongest lens that they experience the world. So you can start seeing like kind of the caricature that we have of men and women. You've got fact-oriented, you've got feeling-oriented, and so those are the prominent.
Men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
Right. I mean, that's a prominent part of it, but I didn't say that every man is that.
True.
Right? I didn't say every woman is that. Because we have all of them in us. These are just what are the easiest ways for us to experience the world. We have the imagination side of it. So being able to have reflections and being able to conceptualize and reflect on the world is actually another lens. So it's this internal world. And then you have reactions, right? So when something happens, you get this strong reaction, these likes and dislikes. So it's animated. That's how I experience the world, is by reacting to it. And then you have actions. I see an opportunity, I'm going for it. You speak to me in that language, I'm going to hear you and I'm going to act on it. And that's how I want to talk. So any of those 6 are available to us, but each of us are going to have one of those that are most comfortable and kind of our go-to floor that we're going to use.
Yeah, it's kind of like love languages, essentially, is sort of how I would relate it. So, different people have different ways that they like to give love and receive love. And a lot of times that's where like conflict happens, is like they're on different levels. And I think PCM is similar in some ways.
Sort of like with my wife, she's very much a touchy-feely. She likes to hug and, I'd rather go do something with her. That's my love. And exactly what you're saying. It's not that we fight about it. We never do, but like it's definitely something. It's different languages. And go ahead.
So let's take that, right? So we look at that with people that maybe we're friends with. Maybe it's siblings, maybe it's parents or children, maybe it's interpersonal, personal relationships. The big piece of this, what Dave was talking about for me, is it elevates our awareness. And if we're going to communicate better, if we're going to lead more effectively, if we're going to just be more influential, period, we have to be more aware of the situation, of ourself, what's going on in me, what's going on in you, so we can be present and connected. So once I have the awareness, now the question is, what do I do with it? So now once you can observe that, oh, my wife really responds well and really appreciates having the chance to talk, about things emotionally, and just me being there and being present and having this touch aspect, this sensory aspect. That's special for her, even if I don't need that, but I can start with knowing it's okay for me to not need that, and it's okay for her to need those things that I don't need.
So whereas like I might come in and be like, that's ridiculous. And that might be my response. Like, we don't always have to be hugging. Let's go do something. Let's have fun.
Right.
Like, that's offensive to her, right? Obviously.
Why is he complaining about these things?
No, I'm not.
Right?
I'm not.
My wife always wants to like touch me.
Yeah,
and,
just like
hug me
going.
and be near
I'm just
me.
saying.
Like, what's wrong with you?
Can't we just dig the garden up or something?
My point is, I love it. Thank you for all your hugs and kisses. But like, exactly the point that this is why throughout life there's a lot of conflicts, is because we might think that that's ridiculous that they're doing something that way. But in that state, they might just need a hug. And I might just need to go work on the garden or whatever it is. And,
Right.
Well, so
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, give us an example then too, because we're talking a lot about, like, both of us here are talking love languages. As far as like process communication model, because you are a corporate coach and a trainer, give us like a really good example of where in the workplace you have two different communication styles that can create like conflict that would lead to judgments on another person, or like an assessment of that individual versus like, oh no, they just communicate differently.
so he's saying, teach us dum-dums how to talk.
Yeah, how do
That's
we-
what
yeah.
he's saying.
Well, so you hit on something that's really important. So I'll use this example. So I'm thinking about a guy. He was really trained in the world of accounting. So finance world. That was the team of this corporation that he was working within. So you have, kind of this team of 10 accountants working together, and the predominant energy, that strongest floor, that strongest lens that you're going to see in a lot of accountants is going to be very fact-oriented, right? It's very thought-oriented. So they're going to be focused on the task, getting the work done, organizing, analyzing. That's how they view success. That's how they expect other people like them to do work, right? And what happens is we tend to project, or we put onto others as if they were us. And so this individual, he's much more reactive in his strongest floor. So he's animated. He needs more people contact. He needs to connect with people. And what they were seeing was this team of 10, his style was he'd work for a while, then he'd get up and then he'd go and talk to somebody, and he'd have to move around, and then he'd be over in the marketing department checking in with them, how's things going, and he'd come back and he'd do work. Well, the reality was he was getting as much work done as everybody else, but the judgment from the team was he's irresponsible, he's immature, he's not doing the work. What they're really saying is, if I was behaving the way he's behaving, I know what would be going through my mind. And it would be, I wouldn't be getting work done. So that it's hard for us to appreciate different styles. And so that creates this conflict, because we put this expectation onto others of how they should act, but we've never talked about it with them. That's the root of all the conflict. So we're applying ourselves to them. So once we elevate the awareness that there's lots of different styles, so the old complaint that, your wife comes and says, I don't want you to solve the problem, I just want you to listen, right? That's kind of the trope, in relationships. And that's quite real in, let's say in that situation, the wife explaining that in this moment, I'm not looking for solutions, I'm not looking for advice, I am needing validation that you care about me as a person. That's all I need. That's it.
That took me a while to
And
figure that
sometimes,
one out.
do you think sometimes in that case, in your example, that your wife may not even, maybe that doesn't even register in that moment. Like they're not, it's not conscious that that's what they're needing.
For sure. Right. Exactly. Right.
In the same way that I think for guys, it may not be conscious that they're just projecting solutions like at one after the other.
It's the water we've been swimming in our whole life. We don't know that people are swimming in different water. We're not aware of it. And so that's why awareness is the beginning of better communication. So I can be aware when I'm trying to expect others to be a mind reader, or when I'm trying to read their mind, when I'm trying to put expectations of behaviors or decisions onto other people. Because for me, it's like the common sense thing. Well, nobody has common sense. Well, for me, the phrase common sense is nobody is making decisions magically exactly the way I would make them. So therefore, they must be idiots.
Right. Wait, is that wrong? Is that, are you not
That's right.
supposed to think that way?
Yeah, come on, man. What are you talking about? So can you break down a little bit about some of the 6 lenses of, because like this stuff has helped me a lot in my life. I'm more of a, come on, just get to it. Let's get to work. Let's get the shit done. Let's move on.
It's action.
And it's action. And also I'm like, why are you crying? Like
This is not a cry-worthy situation.
Let's just
wait. Unless it's a Pixar movie.
Yeah, unless it's a Pixar movie.
We already addressed that.
Suck it up, buttercup, let's go. And this has really helped me to understand that putting also the right people for the right jobs.
Right.
Not expecting certain people to be able to do something when they really just don't have the tools to do it. It's unfair to them and it's unfair to me.
So you're all action, right?
Right.
Your go-to instinct is action. Dave too. But then coupled with that, we won't get into a lot of the details, but then there's this motivation side of it, which might be different than our base. And so that goes into accomplishing things, getting things off your checklist, making sure that, we're able to make a difference in the work that we're doing, building something. So there's a creation aspect to it. There's a learning aspect to it that's important for both of you. And so, those lenses gives us insights into gifts and strengths that we bring to the table. The upside is we have access to all 6 of these, right? So if you think about like a 6-story condominium as our personality, we have access to all 6. But when we're in distress, when we're, those moments where you're like, my battery's out. Okay. When that happens, we go right back to our base. We don't have energy to connect with people at that upper level. So when your gas tank is empty, when your battery is on E, and your wife says, I just need you to comfort me and listen to me emotionally, it's like, you don't have any gas for that, right? So you have to go do something in a healthy way, hopefully, to re-energize. And that's part of this is, how do I energize my battery so I can use all of me, the whole part of me? And each of those 6 are going to have behavioral indications of showing when they're not doing well. Like they have these kind of red flags and yellow flags that, they're not doing well. So that can give us some clues of what's going on with the other person and even what's going on with me. So I'll give you an example for my wife. She wouldn't mind me sharing this, I'm sure. A few years ago, she came home from school. She works at our middle school library. A couple weeks after the first couple weeks of school, she came home and she said, I think I've been in distress. I said, oh, how do you know? She says, I have been making silly mistakes. Like I've been doing things that are mistakes that I wouldn't normally make. Well, for her strongest personality part, that emotion part, one of the symptoms of being in distress is making mistakes. I lose confidence. I have a harder time making decisions. I'm become over adaptive to the environment, and I make mistakes. And so, to her credit, she was able to see her own negative behavior as a clue to say, I need to energize myself. I need to get back in control, because what's happening is telling me that my battery is running empty and I wasn't even aware of it.
So keeping in mind that like a lot of our audience tends to be young men, but just young people in general that are in a position of choosing a profession, choosing, looking ahead at the next 20, 30, 40 years of career.
Trying to find something that's not going to be taken by AI.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it's actually a really small list of possible things they can do. What's like the really quick version of like, what do people need to be keeping in mind? Like maybe the top 3 things they need to think about in pursuing a career that aligns with their way of communicating.
So when we think about personality, we don't want to look at it as this is what these are the only things that I'm qualified to do. As we go through our life, we learn new experiences. We are exposed to different things, and it's like, wow, I didn't know I was going to enjoy that, and that was really cool. I'd like doing more of that. So I think one of them is being sincerely curious about where does your own energy come from? What are the things that you find that you're curious about, that you want to learn more of, that you find meaning in, right? So this is trying not to get too woo-woo, but there is this aspect of meaningful work is important for us. And that there's no single answer to that. It is the individual's responsibility to go on that journey to figure out what do they find meaningful. And so it isn't limitations, but at the same time, what I've seen over and over is when people don't reflect and listen to themselves and they take too many cues from their parents, from their friends, from their girlfriend, spouse, whoever it is, of what they should be doing, and they get on this path of satisfying others, this overly adaptive approach to my career path, that I would say almost always ends with some point of regret or exasperation. Whether that's
midlife crisis.
Ultimately, I mean It's like I can't keep doing this. I got to find something where I can really feel like I can put in the time and it doesn't feel exhausting. And that's when our interests and our values and our passions and our curiosity begin to align. This is not follow your heart and do whatever you find interesting. Like it's not that, but it's like here's how I'd look at it. Go find problems that need to be solved that you find interesting to you. That's it. And I think what's missing in a lot of career advice is it's like follow your passion, which is a great way to go broke and lose a lot of money.
Because my passion is knitting.
Right. It could be, right. It's like, okay, there's something there, but here's the deal. The world is not going to pay you anything to follow your passion. The world is going to pay you to apply your energy and your skills towards problems that the world believes need to be solved, because that's what they're going to pay for. So find problems that you find interesting and set yourself toward them. And we're here a very short period of time. And my encouragement to anybody that's 15 or 25 or 50 is like, go for it. Make something happen, make a difference, find a problem worth solving.
And is problem solving, does that mesh with like all the 6 different levels? Yeah.
So I think in my view, every lens has a different type of problem that it finds interesting to solve, right?
Yeah,
and so that's what leads maybe the different strengths of energy into different types of careers because of the types of problems that we're trying to solve. So if I'm high on the emotion side of it, you find me maybe solving problems in a social setting, helping people as a social worker, as an elementary teacher, or in hospitality, where it's like, these are the kinds of problems I want to solve. I want people to feel comfortable and cared for and invested in and protected. So those types of problems, then, I'm probably going to find more rewarding.
I've got a little bit of a controversial question for you. We just went through, obviously, many years of COVID, and it was interesting how many people reacted so differently. Certain people were like, I ain't never going to die. It ain't never going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Then there were people like, board up the doors, shoot anything that comes through because they were terrified. From your point of view, what happened? I was like, just over this last, like everything's
mass
just
psychosis.
Yes.
Seems like, see, there was this virus, Jake.
Yeah. He's like, you
That's
idiot.
what happened.
But for real, like from your point of view, like what the hell happened to like humanity?
So it boils down to this.
So no big question.
Oh, it boils down to something. Go ahead.
Here's the bottom line for all of that, and that is, it's an ultimate question for each of us to wrestle with, and that is, what do you do with your fear?
I think we've seen what some people do with their fear over the last few years.
So the behavior that we see that seems nonsensical, and all behavior to the individual makes sense, right? So for that individual, they are doing what they believe is the right thing to do, or they wouldn't do it. But to the observer, through a different lens, through a different experience, it seems nonsensical. Like, what are they doing, right? What's going on? And it all relates to, what do we do with our fear? Everybody's going to process fear in a different way. And so you bring this existential moment to the table where people are faced with mortality across billions of people at the same time. Yes, you're going to have mass psychosis, because not everybody, in fact, very few people are probably in a psychological state or spiritual state where they're comfortable facing their mortality. And so you're going to see that negative behaviors express themselves in many different ways, depending on their personality structure and their experiences they've had in their life and their social conditioning and the environment that they're around and things like that. Everybody uses the phrase fight or flight, right? So they're going to fight or they're going to run away. Mm-hmm. There's also freeze, fight, flight, or freeze. And some people were just paralyzed, right? There was leaders, many business leaders, governmental leaders. You saw them express in their situation. Did they freeze? Mm. Did they fight? Did they become authoritarians? Did they become, recluses? What happened in the midst of that? And there's lessons that we hopefully will take, but I'm not betting that we will. But because there's a giant case study right in front of us.
Well, for God's sakes, man, I don't think people realize how much power we had given the government to tell us what to do. And then some people thought we hadn't given them enough.
Right.
And that to me it blew my mind. Here's a scenario that kind of happened. We was at a carnival. It might have been the Pumpkin Festival. And Irene was there with me.
You weren't working as a carny or anything.
No, I look like a carny, but no, I wasn't working. But these girls were there and they were complaining. I could tell they were just mad. They were red-faced. They had corn dog in one hand and they had big gulp drink and clear cotton candy. Both of them were rather large, and they were basically cussing at people in line for not having masks on. How dare they? They don't know they're trying to kill me. Mind you, then they're pulling their mask down, shoving their face full of a corn dog from a carnival. And you don't even know if it's real.
This is about health, right? This is about health.
It was about health.
Where someone's been in like a 4x9 food truck for the last 9 hours.
Exactly. And I was like, she's worried about her health, and she throws that about. She literally said out loud, they all deserve to die. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what the F? Because all I was looking at her was like, I don't understand. You're 150 pounds overweight. You're eating food that's bad for you, and you're worried about them giving you.
Also, you've come out to a carnival. If you're that concerned,
you should stay home then.
Right. If you're concerned to the level that you think the people, at this outdoor event may infect you,
right,
and that they should die for that,
right.
Maybe you should just stay home.
But that's my point.
But we were able to live through history, you could say, of being able to get a witness into, for most people, the hunger for safety is way beyond. So the typical person is going to look around and say, what are most people doing? And they're going to turn the TV on. They're going to say, how should I think about this? How should I feel about this? Right? So we tend to take the easiest path and export our decision-making to whatever is around us, because from a very, let's say, primal state, that's what's safest. Safest is whatever everybody's doing.
So in a state of isolation, we don't really have the luxury of looking around. You can go on social media, and what I think happens is you hear the loudest voices. Mm-hmm. You can select a source for your news, but unless you're intentional about getting information from different sources, it's going to be particularly biased. I think that we've come to realize as a society in the last few years that perhaps our news is more biased and has become more biased than it was before.
Is real.
Right.
So yeah, you don't have, I think, the close connection to your neighbor maybe that you might otherwise have, right?
Dude, what do you see with communication? Is it broken? With social media and working from home?
Well, so the temptation that I'm trying to resist is the, this is the worst generation ever. And, all of the stuff this technology is devastating, because you can go back and you can look at when the newspaper came out there's articles, about how bad the newspaper is, and people are reading the newspaper too much, and books, and when the radio came out, when the TV came out, all of these forms of media, you can find lots of people that were saying this is the end of people's ability to think. And in a lot of ways it's true, but at the same time it's now the beginning of a new way of thinking. Way, 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 way back, pre-literacy, we didn't always write these stories down. We passed them along orally, these oral traditions, right? So that was a form of intelligence that became extinct with the printing press. So all of those oral traditions became extinct and hopefully were captured in printing. So now we're going through this upheaval of new types of extinctions and new types of realities. To your point, though, Dave, here's what I believe we've lost, and that is when you think about just interpersonal communication. So losing the ability to have a different of opinion, having a debate with somebody in a healthy way, being able to have a conversation where in that conversation we began exploring the idea rather than trying to argue or convince you of my already settled idea. And what social media does is it convinces us of our rightness, and then that turns everybody else into a pariah, right? So we become this dogmatic, like, I'm right and I know it and everybody else is out to get me or they're idiots. And then we lose the ability to have this kind of nuanced, let's explore the possibilities. And if I could change anybody's instinct, it would be, rather than looking for information to prove that you're right, once you have a theory, now you need to go out and find people or find theories that could prove you're wrong. And the only way you can win an argument or understand an argument fully is if you're able to take the opposite side and argue theirs too. And so being able to have people in our environment, and that's one of the concerns I would say I have is, even when people are thinking about where to live, the instinct is, I want to go live around people who think like me. And then when they finally encounter, so they do that, right? Whether it's coastal elites or, Midwest rural, whatever it is. So they do that because it's comfortable. It helps me deal with my fear. And then when I do finally encounter somebody that's radically different in their perceptions and beliefs and values than I am, it's like shocking. It's shocking. And that's where the media elites got in trouble, is they are so detached from 80% of where the country is. They can't even conceive of how people are or where they're thinking about things.
Are there communication styles that thrive more in like a social media, like you talk about this very righteous anger and being kind of preachy about things and aggressive? Like, are there types that are going to thrive more, like posting things online constantly?
Yeah, well, you got your reply guys and you got your social media warriors, it's like, and so you get into that righteous preaching, that is a distress pattern, when I talk about the people that have a very strong opinion. So what they're doing is they're using their value system to understand the world. What are they doing with their fear? They're trying to actually protect others. So this righteousness of attack is actually their way of trying to save and help and protect others.
But to other people, they look like just idiots, or those who don't agree with them.
Aggressive.
Or aggressive.
Like,
yeah.
right. Too intense, yeah.
Man, it's over the last 3 years, it's just been so weird, because I remember as a child, if I had to argue with my friend, we'd argue, yell at each other, whatever it is. Oh, you're an idiot. You're stupid. That's ridiculous. Superman is not better than Batman. Like, you would just like stupid things.
It might go on for a few days, right?
Or years.
Right.
But like the reality is you're like, well, you want to get a burger afterwards?
Okay.
Like, we still would go, like, I remember growing up with so many different types of people and then just being like, well, you're my only friend, so let's
guess we got to figure it out.
We got to figure it out. And I feel like, unfortunately, this generation they're missing a little bit of that. And a lot of the kids growing up, not all of them, because there's a lot of great kids out there, I've noticed their communication is really poor. They don't know how to get across anything. Have you seen that?
Yeah, so I want to maybe suggest a couple things. One is, yes, so I've got a friend, he does sales training, and with new people coming in, a lot of it is clients that are doing a lot of phone-based sales training, higher ticket stuff, but it's very phone-based. And so they're having to do with new employees, like basically phone fear training, right?
Really?
So people that are like,
what's the technical? What are they calling it? Are they calling it?
It's a
fear?
phone phobia kind of a thing. It's like this aversion to calling and talking.
Oh yeah,
Irene.
Right? It's like she's like, I feel you, right?
Yeah.
And so it's, well, I just text them, or I sent them an email, or I DM them, right? So when we look at that, like, what's the price of that? What's the cost of that tendency that we have right now? When you look at communication, we use really 5 different elements. There's words, tones, gestures, postures, and facial expressions. All of those help to enrich the communication we have. So when we're texting, when we're sending emails and DMs, it's just words. And you're going to lose a lot of the richness. And so being able to have a conversation, we've all had those situations where you text back and forth like 17 times and you think to yourself, if we would have just gotten on a phone call and talked for 2 minutes, all of this would have been resolved immediately. But here we are trying to do mind reading and trying to explain it just right.
Make sure the emojis are perfect.
Pick the right emoji. No, that's not the right smiley. We got to pick one that's just a little less happy. We spend all this time trying to craft it.
But isn't there a richness also in communicating with memes?
Well, sure. I mean, hard to top memes.
So kind of from the outside looking in, what do you feel like the new generation, are you hopeful? I mean, a lot of people look down on them, but I want to hear your point of view.
Well, here's the good news. If you look back at writings, for about 2,000 years, people have been saying the next generation is the worst one ever. This is not a new trend, and I'm actually hopeful for the next generation because they're going to be very aware and informed of the things that we've been dealing with, kind of figuring things out with the whole world of social media. I mean, the internet, the social media, this is a very new way to live, and we haven't figured out a lot about it yet. And so I think that they're in a position where they're going to be more attuned to it, more aware of it. And, there's, you call them, weapons of mass distraction. I mean, we have them with social media. And so I think about my son, he's, kind of lukewarm to social media. And I think there's more that are recognizing that I don't have to live my life just on my phone, that we need to have rich relationships and that we're a resilient people and we're going to figure things out. And that's my hope. That's my belief.
I like it. I feel like it's just so new. And we as humans don't quite know how to react just yet.
We're not designed to be able to have this type of connection and access to information. We're not wired for that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have to figure out something different.
How do you see humanity reacting to all of this new technology? We're doing bad now. we're poor, but like fast forward 100 years, are we okay, bro?
You don't need to communicate anymore. Like with Chat GPT, you're just like,
that's right.
Respond to this email for me, or like
I do that all the time.
Create this post. You don't even have to worry about it now.
I think with the speed of change that we're in right now, like being able to predict 5 years from now is going to be just impossible. I mean, prediction is just a really hard thing to do. I have to go back to the hope in humanity that we find a way, that we resist the capturing of our human spirit and uniqueness and getting plugged into a computer and being just cyborgs. I think we have to resist the temptation for safety and ease, which is not in our instinct, right? But every time we go for safety, we're going to give up sovereignty. If you're 16 years old and you're listening to this episode, it's like, well, what can I do? The future of our country, of our civilization, of whatever that is, begins with one person making a decision, I think, to do two things. And that is get good at something. I don't care what it is. Part of the I think, devastation that people feel, the alienation they feel, is they've been distracted by social media and games and whatever, and have never applied themselves to get the pride and confidence to say, I can create something, I can do something. I don't care what it is. And the second thing is go out and build real relationships, 2, 3, 4, 5 real in-person connected relationships where you can have hard conversations, where you can have curious conversations. I think if we can begin doing that at an individual level, then collectively, right, good things begin happening because we've strengthened the individual, but we cannot rely on sitting in our basements being keyboard warriors and thinking that our society is going to magically get great.
And it's tough, though. It's tough I think, for this next generation to find that confidence.
For sure.
To find...
Man, the world they grew up in, though. It's
to feel like you're good at something because...
But here's the deal. That's not the goal, right? So you can't wait for the confidence to feel like I'm ready to do something. Where does the confidence come from? The confidence comes from the belief that you can figure something out and then applying yourself towards it and then realizing I can create things. So the alienation people feel, the disappointment and the distraught sense we get is here's what technology does: is it disembodies us. It disconnects us from reality, from nature, from our hands, from building things, creating things. You're a carpenter, right? The pride of making something, even though there's a headache of getting there, and you smash your thumb and you do all those things, but you physically are creating something, and it turns into this emotional improvement to you. And so the more that we end up just having robots do everything for us, the more we're going to have to find something for us to feel connected to the world. And that's probably, I think, the biggest hurdle, even beyond social media, as we go forward.
Yeah, I just think it's tough, though, because like you have a young person trying to gain confidence. And in the past, you would think, I can't run a mile, so I want to do something about that. And so I'm going to start going to the gym. I'm going to start going running. Eventually, you're going to run a mile, and you're going to feel really good. Mm-hmm. You're going to say, great, I did.
Then you go online and see Jocko run 111 miles, and you're like, I'm a fat ass.
And that's my point, is you can go online and you can, no matter what it is, you within seconds can find the most extreme version of that, which is immediately deflating. If you want to work out, say you want to put on some muscle, you can go online and suddenly you're looking at, Mr. Olympia for the last 15 years, and it can become deflating. If you want to start a business, you go online and you find, these gurus who have built billion-dollar companies, from doing all these, cool things, whether it's real estate side hustles, it's this or that. So I find that I'm sympathetic to that with people who I think that's why you end up with a lot of people that, like you see this on social media, you see this online, young people especially, where they're kind of paralyzed because they want to go do a thing, they want to pursue that passion and that interest, but it's like, oh wow, there's like a bazillion people that have already mastered that, and they're so much further ahead, than I am.
For sure. I mean, that's a perennial challenge. But my first piece of advice when people ask for advice is don't take advice. Right? So that's number
good
one.
Advice right there.
Don't take advice. So at the risk of sounding like I'm giving advice, I mean, a couple things to think about that I've learned in my little stint on this rock is,
here it is. Here's the secret sauce.
Everything that you see online is crap.
Yeah. A lot of it's manufactured.
Hallelujah.
It's not real.
It's so fake.
The second piece is nobody knows what they're doing. You see these people that you think they've got it all figured out. I don't care if it's a wonderful relationship, an entrepreneur, a Fortune 500 CEO, you think they have it figured out. And you know what? You go spend a day with that person and you realize they are just stumbling through the day trying to figure out how to figure it out.
This is a guy who talks to those people a lot. So
Nobody knows how anything works. Nobody knows how to do anything. And I'm saying
that's scary when we had a world with nukes in it.
That's right. Yeah. This is like the worst motivational speech ever, right? But it is actually what I found to be encouraging is the people that we perceive have it figured out is based on the story we're telling ourselves about them. But if you go spend time with them, this is why they say never go meet your heroes, because when you spend time with your hero, you realize they are fallen, confused, fallible people.
Yeah.
And we've put them in this pedestal. And the challenge now is every time you scroll, every time you pull up a video, you have a new hero to put on a pedestal, and you don't realize all of the crap that they don't know how to do, they've done wrong, they've screwed up, the demons they're fighting. And so just as encouragement, recognize nobody knows what they're doing, but you do it anyway. You just keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's great advice, and I think it's really true.
The flip side to all of this, though, and I do, my heart goes out to the...
Oh, wait, it's not advice, though. Sorry.
It's not advice.
Not best, not advice I've ever heard. But the flip side of it is what a world we live in where now, instead of having to always just go to school or get an apprenticeship, you can learn so much.
Anything you want.
Anything you want. I mean, Harvard has a lot of their classes just online for free. I mean, I can rebuild my engine now on my Jeep because I watched a bunch of videos, read a bunch of stuff.
Right.
I'm very confident that and I've never done it before, and I'm doing it. And it seems to be working fine. So
information is no longer a differentiator to our value.
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody has it.
Yeah.
So we've got to realize that our value comes from other things, right? So everybody has a special spark in them, right? So it's the action we take. It's intent that we bring to the table, the opportunity to serve others, whatever this thing is that we bring to the table, we know that it isn't because of some secret information that we have, because of our degree. That ship has sailed, right? I would not be wanting to run a university for the next 20 years, because what the world is needing is very different than what a lot of them are providing.
Right.
So go back to what's the problem we're trying to solve here? And if you're focused on bringing the world solutions to problems that it cares about, you're going to be fine, right? But get in the ring. So one of my favorite poems, if you will, is Teddy Roosevelt's "Man in the Arena." And so I would recommend anybody going and just search "Man in the Arena." It's wisdom for any young man, but any young person. You don't have to be a guy. It's just great wisdom, and it's all about how easy it is for people to sit in the stands and criticize the people out in the arena. It's hard to be the one out in the arena, and that's where you need to be.
So, okay, a few big steps back here late in this show. It was a few years ago that you kind of set out on your own and jumped right in the center of the arena, of your own arena, with Claris Results.
Yep.
I think it would be useful probably for people to hear maybe a little bit about your journey, your career, getting to the point where you felt confident to do that, you felt equipped to do that, and kind of what drove you to be this
badass that you are.
This like a lot of your background is like rooted in sales or marketing consulting type work.
Yeah.
Talk us through that a little bit and what kind of got you to this point where you're like, I need to fix communication in the world, in the corporate world. So I'm gonna jump in the arena. I'm gonna do it.
He talked to 3 people and was like, God, do I need to fix this?
He came to the conclusion, like you said earlier, nobody knows what they're doing. They're all idiots. I'm gonna fix it.
So my path doesn't make any sense. So where I am today, doing my own thing, like you said, sales was my main preparation. And what was interesting, the final weeks of college, I said to a friend, I said, there's plenty of things that I'd be interested in doing. I'd studied agriculture, so my background is agriculture. And I said, but I don't want to be in sales. That was my mindset, leaving college. I don't want to be in sales because of the conception that I had about what sales was. And then I found out that if you want to help people, the best way to do it is get into sales.
Solving
with
problems.
all sincerity.
If you're selling something that you can solve,
you're on the front of you're on the tip of the spear. You're out there. You have to improve your communication. You have to improve your understanding, your listening. And I encourage anybody at some point in your life, your early career, mid-career, wherever it is, go get a sales job. I mean, it is the best training that you can get of understanding the customers, how to create value, and improve yourself. So for me, over the course, I was blessed to have great mentors and great friends that I worked for many years here, and they were a big part of not only the learning and the opportunities for growth that I had, but then supporting me in going off on my own. So, what helped me to go off on my own was probably 3 things. I was able to live a frugal enough life to be able to have a financial position where I could take risk. And I think that's a big thing. I mean, you think about the financial position a lot of people are in. You know what the average price of a new car right now that's sold is?
A lot?
What's your guess?
Average
price?
Out of 100 cars that are sold brand new, what's the average price?
30,000?
It's more. I bet it's 40 pretty easily. Yeah.
No.
$49,000.
Are you?
But I mean,
What?
that's probably going to include like big SUVs, trucks, everything.
Yep.
Yeah, but
But the average is 40.
$49,000. 18% of people are paying more than $1,000 a month on a car payment.
Yeah.
So
the world's broke.
yeah, right. So for me,
But they all have really nice cars.
you got nice,
Nice
right?
new
All my cars cost less than $5,000.
Right. It's like, for me, it's like get a foundation where you have options, and the best thing you can do is build some financial independence so that you can make different choices. And that's very hard right now with the price of houses, with the price of cars. But you got to get creative, right? You got to have that as a vision that you're not going to be a slave to debt your entire life. Because if you are indebted, you don't have choice, right? So that's step 1 is have some freedom so you can make choice. Step 2, for me, I felt like I had gotten to a point where I had accumulated enough experiences and insights that I could be helpful to the world. Even though I didn't have a clarity of what is it exactly that I'm creating, I believed that in communication and leadership and training and the things that I could do, that I could bring benefit to others. And if I could do that, then I could build a business. And then the other piece of that, so if financial freedom is an important piece of it, I don't mean you have to be like independently wealthy. I mean, like, just don't be so in debt that you can't have any hiccups. The other thing is who you pick to partner with.
Mm-hmm.
And so the blessing for me is having a wife that's supportive and encouraging and willing to go on some kind of crazy ideas that I have. And without her, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I'm doing. So
what are you doing?
What am I doing?
Tell us about Clarus Results.
My focus is working with leaders and leadership teams, new managers, helping really with that transition from that technical expert, then they get that promotion into being a supervisor. And for a lot of people and for a lot of organizations, that's a really traumatic period. They're not well prepared. The organization gets frustrated. They don't have the skills. And so I do a lot of training that I deliver inside companies, as well as one-on-one with individuals in coaching situations, where there's that leadership transitioning happening, where I'm moving into leadership, or maybe I'm becoming a leader of leaders. But it's the fundamentals of leadership that are infused with communication. That's the work that I'm doing right now. And I do it really all over the country. A lot of my work is remote, but also I do on-site type workshops with teams. And I love really working with them into some in-depth stuff and having them come back at future sessions and saying, here's the results I got from just approaching communication differently. By dealing with myself differently, I'm getting results already. This is exciting. Like, that for me is meaningful work.
What's something that someone can like read to learn just a little bit more about how to make oneself better? If I am a 15-year-old kid and I actually do want to do better at work and everything, where do I go? How do I start?
Well, this is a different world than I had, so I didn't have YouTube growing up. I couldn't go on there. And I think things like YouTubes and podcasts are just a well of amazing content. And so I encourage, go out and find people that seem to have some really good insights. Use that. If that's how you like consuming content. Sure, there's a lot of books. Books are a helpful complement to that. I mean, I think about, this is maybe passé, but one of the books that early on in my journey, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
It's a good book.
Right? I mean, it's 100 and some years old, but it's foundational for a lot of that kind of self-awareness, self-development. So I think the first question is, make the choice. Do you want to get better? And then what's your plan? What's your plan? So there's 3 questions for us to, in anything that we want to wrestle with. One is, what is it you want? What is it you want? That's the number one coaching question.
Yeah.
What do you want? So you have to have a vision to aim for, some direction. I don't mean like this perfect picture of what I want to accomplish or become, but I've got to be directionally correct. What do I want?
Sometimes is it also in a corporate situation, what does the company want? What does top leadership want for me in this role? Right?
We get so hung up on just doing stuff and filling up our container with meetings and to-dos and emails and all this stuff, and we feel busy, and then we realize we haven't got anything done. And so the first question is, what do you want? If you're 15, what kind of life do you want? What kind of person do you want to become? You have the ability to become the person you want to become. You can do that. That's number one. Number 2 is, what's the price of that? Whatever it is you want to become, the company you want to build, the thing that you want to achieve. You want to become a PGA golf star? Okay. You need to go and find out what the price of becoming that star is going to be, because everything has a price. And the third thing is, once you find out that price, you have to decide if you're willing to pay it.
So super insightful. And you talk about, maybe don't follow your passion. One of the advantages I think people have with platforms like YouTube now is that the roadmap for success is clearer, I think, for a lot of different pathways than it ever was before.
So many more inspirational models for us.
And not only just inspirational models, but just having the platform itself allows people with very specific interests and passions to, in many cases, become incredibly wealthy with things that were in the past far too obscure because people now have the platform to build their own audience and directly reach their own clients. And so
I only need 100 people maybe that I'm serving in whatever this niche is, but they might be spread out over 23 countries, right? You know, in that niche. So this is an amazing time for people if they have vision, ambition. You bring ambition to the world. I mean, if you guys were 16 years old today, like you think, I mean, there's so much opportunity, but the world wants to tell us like it's hopeless and useless. So you got to put that out. Like, I mean, there is software getting uploaded to people's brains every day, and you got to be careful about what kind of software is getting uploaded to your operating system.
Yeah.
And there is opportunity everywhere, and so make sure you're putting the right software in.
On top of that, our software continues to like write its own code and algorithm without us realizing it. So like if you're constantly consuming content that is not building and is not helping you grow and is not helping you be a better person, but instead creates doubt and negative self-talk.
Helplessness.
Those things can be happening unconsciously.
It's a death loop, right? Yeah.
Well, how does someone stay positive in a time like this where we're in a recessionary period and they're talking about it's going to go bad, banks are, closing?
That's a blessing.
We'll dive into that a little bit.
Right.
Go on.
So be a contrarian, right?
Yeah.
I mean, go out and Google what companies were started in recessions, and you're going to see names of companies that are going to blow your mind because the recession is the opportunity.
Yeah, you're right.
You don't want to be the one starting at the top. You want that upheaval. You want that reshuffling. So I think
what's Warren Buffett saying? Be greedy when everyone's afraid and be afraid when everyone's greedy.
Right? So if you've got 5 of your friends saying, this is a terrible time, this is a terrible time, this is a terrible time, odds are, if you change your perspective, it's probably a great time.
I love it.
There's a Chinese proverb that says, no, it's not even...
Why did you actually just like read it on a fortune cookie?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about who actually said it, and
you
it
can
was
say it and she'll Google it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, information is not value. We can get information.
That's right. We can Google it.
Yeah.
This time, like all times, is a great one if you but know what to do with it.
Yeah. Hindsight.
What do you do with it, right? Yeah. So there are opportunities sitting right here if you're 15, 25, 35, 45, 65. There are opportunities if we know what to do with it. And so that means you have to do something.
Irene? She got it.
Ralph Waldo Emerson.
That's right.
Ralph Waldo Emerson. Wow. And can you say the line, like, what is it again?
This time,
right,
like all times, is a good one if we but know what to do with it.
That's good.
So you're saying like basically you go back to any type of dip in the market or recession in society, like had people known how long it was going to last and what the impacts were going to be 20, 40 years down the line, you could have made some really great decisions.
For sure.
So
everybody thinks this is the worst time ever. Like you got people right now thinking it's the worst racist time in the world. And it's just like, you look back, it's like, have you not read any history books, buddy?
Right.
Like, yeah, things aren't perfect.
Many,
but like,
many have not. That's part of our problem.
Yeah, so now seems always to be the worst time ever.
Yeah.
But women have it the best that they've had in most all of history. I mean, go back, a few generations, what's it? The rule of thumb was you could basically beat on your wife as long as the stick wasn't bigger than your thumb. I don't know if that's true.
If you really get into history, it is a cruel and merciless world that we have come through.
Brutal.
And so what happens is we as humans need some level of challenge, and if it isn't presented to us, we create it ourselves.
And you're seeing that right now.
Right.
People are almost making up oppressions.
I have to go, and I'm not saying anything against therapy, but all of my friends have a therapist, so I need to go to a therapist so that I can tell my friends I'm going to a therapist. And when I'm with my therapist, I need to come up with something to talk about with my therapist. Otherwise, I'm not in the in crowd.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to have a thing. Again, not against therapy. Therapy is a very helpful and important thing. But it isn't a lifestyle. It's not an identity. Right? Go do something. Go walk in nature. Go create something. Go learn to play an instrument. Right? And the confidence that comes from mastery will exceed any type of pill or anything that you could find.
Do you think that comes back to that whole idea of solving problems, though? Like if you can get into that groove as a person, as a professional, where you build your skill set and your life around identifying and solving problems, not only do you get the confidence from that and the satisfaction of that, but you also live a life of fixing things, including yourself. Like you can identify, I'm uncomfortable in this situation, or I am, I feel down lately for whatever reason, perhaps I can self-assess and I can solve that problem too.
And it's okay to feel down. It's okay to feel sad, right? These are all authentic emotions. These are okay things, right? But I have to take responsibility. So I have this circle of what I have control over, and then I have a circle of influence beyond that. And when I lose track of what's in my control and what's in my influence and what's even beyond my influence, I start feeling helpless because I think I should be controlling things, but I can't. One of the only things we can control is how we respond in a situation. So can I be observant of the feedback I'm getting, whether it's emotionally or people around me or the system? And then what do I do with that feedback, right? That's a part of the control of my reaction that I have.
One of the most useful things that we've taken from your teaching, my wife and I, is the idea that you can't make me feel sad and I can't make you feel sad, or that's how it should be. How does that, how's it supposed to go?
I mean, it's a question of who has control over my emotional state.
Yeah.
Do others or do I?
Nobody has a control over my emotional state.
Jake's
Nobody has control over any of
That's
that.
right.
No, but I mean, that's really empowering to acknowledge that it is not my responsibility to make somebody else happy.
Right.
Like I'm not responsible for their happiness, because in the same way that it's my decision to be happy and to respond to the world in ways that are positive for me, they also bear that burden.
And that doesn't mean you shouldn't buy your wife flowers, right? That is okay.
See, that's often when it comes up for us. Hey, look, it's not my responsibility to make you happy.
What if my wife doesn't like flowers? She likes expensive things, so please help me out here, bud.
Okay. Doesn't mean you can't buy her expensive things, but
No.
It's just a $7 coffee every day. It's
see, it's
Three
little
times a
luxury.
day.
It's little luxuries, right?
We're back to love languages.
Little luxuries.
I love that girl. I'll do whatever she wants.
That's right.
Can we maybe wrap with telling us a little bit about this book that you've released pretty recently, and then I want to know like where people can follow you and learn more about Claris.
Sure. So this book here, this is the French version. So it was released a few months ago in France. It's called PCM in Interactions for anybody that speaks French.
We'll show it.
My co-author is French. We wrote it in English, but the publisher in France really wanted to bring it to the market there. It's a big audience there, so we released it in French. In the U.S., it's going to be coming out here shortly. It's going to be called How We Connect, and you can find it on Amazon or wherever you buy books from a website or connection. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm the only Dean Heffta on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn.
That's two F's.
Two F's.
Is this like a full deep dive? By
So
the way,
with
like,
the-
are you
with
going to
the-
come away from this like with a full PCM?
Yeah. So what the concept of the book is following 6 participants in training. So you're walking through training.
Like work training?
It's just an educational experience.
Okay.
And it's set so in real time you're observing the training happening. And what that means is you're being introduced to each of the principles, and you're watching the different personalities respond and react and ask about these different principles. So it's a learning of PCM over time.
Okay.
And then, obviously there is a survey for people that really want to do a deep dive. So I do one-on-one reviews and coaching with people.
For people like Jake who love to just fill out
who just
surveys.
love surveys, right? It's a deep dive. But over and over, I hear people, to Jake's point, say, this was such an enlightening experience because now I understand more of what's going on in me and what I need so I can be better for others and take care of myself better. And so that's what the book is really a journey of experiencing the key elements of what PCM brings to the table for improving communication.
You use the word enlightening, and that's how I would describe it too, because it really is just, it's exactly that. And you feel like you've kind of unlocked some sort of secret psychological code as far as how do I communicate and how are others attempting to communicate with me as well. We were talking about this before the show. It'd be fun to look at like well-known, probably like celebrities or something, and do like an assessment, of their communication style, or take some clips of someone communicating in a way that could be categorized pretty easily within the model and talk through that, like a live learning session.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It'd be fun.
Yeah, maybe we'll do debates, like the actual debates.
Yeah.
See
that'd
that
be cool.
posture? He thinks he's letting everybody know he's confident and ready to. Yes, there's just so
steepling.
many. Well, and you see, once you kind of know some of these little tactics, you just see them everywhere, and just like how all of
I was
them,
going to do that. The politicians
The
always point like
politicians.
They
this.
love
because they
the
don't want to
thumb
be
up.
pointing. But no, dude, you've been helpful to a lot of us. It's changed our lives, and I recommend everybody read the book. We probably won't publish this until your book is actually ready, just so that there's a link right in the bottom to get it. Get it. It'll help you out.
Where can people learn more? I think I cut you off on that. Like, tell
Yeah,
us
so
more
my
about Claris.
website is clarisresults.com, CLARUS results.com.
You're gonna start a YouTube channel.
I will. Yeah, there's YouTube coming. I'll be relaunching my podcast, so that's in process right now. But yeah.
You got a great voice.
You gonna have us on or what?
Of course.
Of course.
Of course. Yeah.
We have
That's
so much
called
expertise to
bullshit.
bring. He's actually trying to add value to his show and provide value. So I don't think we'll be asked on.
We're
but-
into memes and we're gonna.
Proceeding
If
this,
you're cool with this, we'll like to have you on as we talk about other people as well. Just
Yeah,
because
that'd be fun.
you got
You
a
wanna be
wonderful
like-
perspective on things.
You could be like the
Professional,
the correspondent that sort of like joins us occasionally. And
the two idiots and the smart guy. Right?
exactly.
Dean.
We could get shirts that say that.
Yeah, that'd probably sell well.
Probably.
Man, we appreciate you and thank you for sharing your wisdom. We'll have you back on. You got another podcast after this, so we're gonna let you be. And sorry for taking up most of your day. We couldn't find a microphone, so we ended up with a vocal mic. I think you guys recorded several albums on that one.
Yeah, that's probably a better mic than these, but
Yeah.
maybe not in this
Who
situation.
knows? Dean, thank you so
Dean,
much.
Thanks for having me. This has been a blast.
Yeah. Sorry, we're idiots. Bye, everyone.
The thoughts and opinions on this show do not reflect those of our advertisers, employers, or other affiliates. The content should not be considered legal or financial advice. The Chasing Mountains podcast is a production of Chasing Mountains Media.